videocast, whatever we're calling this these days, with special guests. They're all special. I guess if they're all special, none of them are special. And
Right. And is special the word you want to use?
special can mean many things, Michael
Exactly.
Stevens.
I'm definitely one form of special.
Well, this is a special podcast today because Michael and I have known each other longer than my wife and I have known each other, and we have probably gotten in more argument than my wife and I have over the years of our
It's probably
lives.
that's a close race.
It's a close race. It's a close race. Let me do my intro here. You're already throwing me off here. Welcome to the Nimdzi Live Podcast. Nimdzi Insights is a market research consulting and advisory company specializing in helping companies go global and helping global companies better reach their international customers. And what that means is taking the true sense of the word localization and making sure that your local audiences perceive your product and service in the same way they would as if it was a company down the street. This is what we do. We work with big clients that the top ones. I really need to work on my pitch, Michael. This is why I need.
If people don't know about Nimdzi, just have them call, email me, and I'll gladly tell them.
Oh, okay, all right.
Not during the live stream. I need to focus on talking. But if you don't know, you need to ask somebody. Yeah. People know about Nimdzi.
Well, yeah, and that's, Nimdzi is out there. So if you're watching this, if you're already a fan, a follower, then thank you. Like, we appreciate you.
If you stumbled on this, I am so sorry. Go somewhere else.
Yeah, if you
there's a lot more interesting things to listen to.
If you did stumble on this, I would love for you to like and subscribe.
Yeah,
because
right here.
Right here. Here, I'll do it again. Yeah, please.
This is why I don't do video. It's too much fun.
It is way too much fun. It is way too much fun. So, for our listeners, viewers out there, and if you're joining us live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, or Twitter, then please engage in the comments. And if you have
StreamYard.
Or StreamYard. You just heard that word somewhere, and you wanted to use it, didn't you, Michael?
No, they're the up and comers in the space.
Yeah, but I think StreamYard, they're not a platform. They're a distribution channel. Yeah, we use a Restream here.
It's quite possible that they will be a platform as well in the near future.
Is it really? Someone's been selling to StreamYard. It sounds like someone's been doing their discovery.
It's an industry.
Yeah, it's an industry. Well, what are we talking about today, Michael? I have up here in the title, Competition, Coopetition, and Innovation in Language Services. And this, for all of you, if it sounds like we're coming in halfway through a conversation, it's because Michael Stevens and I were at dinner last night with some cool people here in the localization industry in Seattle. So
it was practice.
It was practice.
We set up a dinner because all of us have been in our basements for a year and a half, and we wanted to see if we could actually go out in public and not show up in our pajamas.
Yeah, and I think most of us accomplished that. I was pretty.
One person did say they had their pajamas on underneath their clothes.
Yeah, I really want to name names here, but
but we'll protect the guilty.
We'll protect the guilty. Exactly.
We will. Your secrets are safe with us, GR.
Yeah. Well, GR. GR. Okay. I got to plug. I'm sorry. I got to plug your podcast here, the Global Podcast, because I am honored enough here to have Michael Stevens on. Michael, you were like one of the OG podcasters for our industry, and I know there's other people out there doing it. No disrespect to them. But
no, it's amazing to see the plethora of voices that have come out. I mean, it's happened in every industry, so it shouldn't be a surprise that it happened in localization, where we care about words and access and things like that. So I had a passion for listening to podcasts. I think that has to do with my age. Honestly, I was I'm a white male of a certain demographic, and when podcasts came out, we were like, "Oh, I'm going to stop listening to talk radio and I'm going to start listening to podcasts."
I was just about to say, podcasts are like the talk radio, the AM talk radio of our generation.
It's like drive the kids nuts listening to it.
Yep.
And I was at a company at the time, which was Moravia, which no longer exists. And I kept
That's what
saying,
I say too. It's like, yeah, Moravia doesn't exist anymore, which is true. That's a true
yeah.
statement.
And a bunch of people's hearts broke
Yeah.
every time. It's like an angel loses its wings when you
Yeah,
say
I
that.
know. It makes me
We,
simultaneously sad and
yeah.
smile when I say Moravia no longer exists.
Yeah. So within Moravia, I kept saying, hey guys, we should do a podcast. And everyone was like, yeah, Michael, go ahead, do it. But you have weekends? That would be awesome.
What?
And I was like, wait a second. Like these take a lot of work in a team and I need help. And
Unless you do it
someone
like me, where I'm just like hit the live button and see what happens.
not we just talked about this before we got started. Not many people are as good at as many things as you, Tucker. And
Yeah, well,
so
that's why I need smart
and
people as guests
and
because
I am
it,
certainly not good at that many things. And so I needed a lot of help to get this off the ground. And I got a new boss. And instead of pitching this idea, I sent him my 3 favorite podcasts on a Friday evening before I signed off for work.
okay.
Monday morning at 6:30 a.m., I got a call from this person saying, when are we doing a podcast together? And that was the birth of my podcasting history. It was with Renato Beninato,
Right,
and
right.
we started Globally Speaking, which was fully sponsored and supported by Moravia at the time, and then RWS against their better judgment. It was supported by them. And then when I left RWS, we sort of kicked it up again into what is now the Global Podcast.
Yep.
It's a little less pressure to, not that Renato nor I really feel much pressure to have to say the company line. We just sort of speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now we really don't have to. And so our goal was always to, because this was before all the conferences were virtual. And we
Mm-hmm.
felt like every time we went to a conference in our industry, and this leads to the topic. Whoa, we got there. When you go to a conference, the materials in the
That was
conference
all
are pretty,
planned. That was all
yeah, it
planned.
is. It's pretty cool to hear people speak at you, but the best conversations are the ones in the bar at night when people are like their real selves, right? They're
Yeah.
just, maybe they've had a drink, maybe they haven't, but they're just speaking honestly about the work we do.
I've only
And
had 2 this morning, so
you've had
I should be good.
two coffees,
Yeah.
and to see experts and like I've been in the industry long enough that people think I know something because I've listened to enough smart people say things.
Right.
And so I've learned. But when this first came about, I would just be in these situations and a head of localization from a major tech company, Microsoft, Google, Apple, would be sitting across from the bar and just talking in details that I couldn't even begin to understand about what's really happening
Mm-hmm.
in our industry. And then as I progressed in my career, the faces changed and some of them stayed the same, and the tribe grew. But I thought, man, everyone should be having these type of conversations.
Right.
And so when we started the podcast, we just
Because
wanted to,
you're privileged enough to have budget to go to those conferences, right?
exactly.
And I remember the same thing back when at Moravia and before Moravia. It's like I was not always the guy that bosses gave budget to go to conferences for, and I didn't have access to all of that
Yep.
talk, right?
And in our industry, if you were able to get that budget, and you are able to create the physical presence with people, is an incredibly generous and accessible industry.
Mm-hmm.
I always say you're one introduction away from the person who created Trados.
Right.
You're one introduction away from the person who came up with ISO standards for internationalization. You sort of name a tech or an innovation or anything, the people are very, very close. We're an ancient industry, but technology and everything, we're a very young industry. And
I think
so
in my book I called it the oldest profession on earth, which is a
it's,
joke because in English you say the oldest profession on earth is prostitution. But I said,
yes,
before prostitution happened, someone needed to negotiate rates, which required
yes,
language. So,
yes, yes. Because in marriage, there's no negotiating the rate.
no, there's not. Exactly. Well,
Really, really bad joke.
yeah,
I hope my wife doesn't
I
listen
thank
to
you
this.
for your contribution with the global podcast. You've been a inspiration to folks like me and to other people. I'm interviewing someone else today who is also hosting a podcast, and oh my gosh, I want to say not Slovak, no, Croatian. I think she does a Croatian language
Wow.
podcast, and that to me is super cool because we're starting to see diversification, true localization of the podcast. People,
Cool.
because of the barrier to entry is so low, people can get out there and really start appealing to their local audiences as well.
And what I didn't realize at the time, I'm much more of like, I like to look back on the history and first principles of why things happen. So while I wanted to be that casual style of experts talking,
Mm.
I also wanted to tell the story of how our industry is developed,
Mm.
because I don't think that's told enough. And I want to be who's the filmmaker who's done, like, the American filmmaker who does Civil War and baseball and
Oh, Ken
uh,
Burns.
Ken Burns. I
Yeah.
wanted to be the podcasting Ken Burns for localization, was sort of my goal.
Okay.
The irony is Renato is like, future, 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 innovation. Let's talk about the latest and greatest thing. And so I think that created a dynamic tension between our goals, which made it more interesting to listen to, because we
Oh,
weren't both just like boring old people. I'm the boring old person. Renato's the young, sprightly, thoughtful person. And
ironically enough.
yeah, exactly. And we played off of this thing. Where was I going with that? That said, I didn't realize that I would do it long enough where people would come into this industry for their career, and a part of their introduction to the industry would be our silly podcast.
That's scary. That's scary.
It is. It
uh,
is wild. The first podcast we ever did together, I think Renato and I both had at least a bottle of wine, because we did a
each.
crowd. We did a crowd thing, right? And it was like live, and it was a totally different feel than what we do now. It was with our company, and it was, people were shouting things at us while we were doing it. It was like performance art kind of, and then we were like, well, we can't do that every time. Like,
Yeah.
that was
Fun,
intense.
but
Yeah, that was intense. And we actually have done a couple of those style at Loc World, where we would interview a number of people. We did 2 of them, and that was pretty fun as well.
I think you've interviewed me a couple times, and I think one of them was publishable. I think there's some MP3 sitting on your hard drive somewhere where you're like, yeah,
I think they
we're not going to publish
crashed.
that one.
I think that we had a trouble with the mic.
Oh,
that night
okay,
or
yeah.
something.
It was a cord issue. It was a hardware issue.
It was.
I'm sure.
Kink in the cord. So anyway, I'm super grateful that it's impacted people, and I thought we would do 12 and call it a day,
A series,
and
yeah.
I would be like, I would learn how to do podcasts, and then I'd move on to do my real podcast about jazz history or something, like something not loc. And I love the time spent with Renato. I love the guests that we have, and we've done close to 120 podcasts together.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Well, and all those
wild.
conversations too, you're learning at each of those. I mean, if you just think about that, that's 120 hours you've spent talking to experts in the related fields. So you can't walk away from that not knowing something. And that's here's my our second attempt at a segue here into the subject. That leads us nicely into this idea of competition, coopetition, and innovation in the language services industry. And because you've seen it all out there, and
well, and to finish on the podcast thing, though, because it's related, is Moravia took a huge chance on it. They had no idea what this young person would say when they got on the microphone every other week and interviewed people. Some were clients, some were not clients, some were authors. Like, they gave up a level of control. Now they told me they listened to them and approved them. I would be surprised if that really happened. Then when RWS came into the picture, there was some sense of tension of like, whoa, during the acquisition, no one told us that there is a sales guy publicly saying stuff every other week on the internet about us.
I'm surprised they let you keep publishing during the due diligence period.
Because they didn't know.
They didn't know.
And to their credit, though, once they knew, they just said, we need a framework that allows for this to happen in a way that is fair, because we are paying for it, and Michael is an employee, and like, we're funding it. And so it became,
Fair enough.
it taught me a lot about doing a creative exercise within a company. So I learned that piece of it. What I highlight is, now the largest company in our industry still had a vision for putting out content that was good for everyone. It was not just about them. And one of our rules to this day is, you still can't flatter the hosts. That's not the point of the podcast. The point of the podcast is to give people a platform and the ability to speak.
I don't have that
But
problem. Not that many
yeah,
people come on with nice things to say. About.
yeah. Well, it's really Renato.
Yeah, yeah.
We did a similar interview of guests recently, and they were like, Renato, you said this amazing thing in our research, and then they were like, and Michael, we did interview you, right?
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So, but it does get to the generosity of our industry.
Yeah. And I've had this conversation so many times, just like within the last week here, because it's, I've been doing a lot of lunches, and since they've all gone virtual, like I think I'm joining the Monterey Local Lunch today.
So cool.
Atlanta, I missed Atlanta yesterday, which bugs me because
Do they call it Atlanta or do they call it Hotlanta?
Hotlanta, I don't know.
Hotlanta, baby.
Ask Camicia.
Hotlanta.
My friend and colleague Camicia is heading the Atlanta one, so I wanted to make that one. But there's all these different local lunches, and I love that you can just drop into them. And every single one, well, I mean not every single one, but a lot of them, there's newcomers. And consistently, I hear from those newcomers, they're just like dumbfounded. They're like, "Wow." You guys are being so nice. Like, you don't know me. You're making introductions. You're sending me resources. You're sending me links. And I think in that regards, we are a very cooperative, innovative industry that, even if not officially or not like on paper, I think at some gut level, those of us that have been around here for a while realize that it's not a zero-sum game on the vendor side, and that a rising tide really does raise all ships.
Well, in our best moments, we live out the fact that the world embraces diversity,
Mm.
and we live out that principle. So there's a acquaintance of mine named Shane Claiborne who was at a monastery, and he was walking around the monastery with the monk, and there were chickens everywhere. And the monk said, do you know what type of species of chicken that is? And Shane would say, no. And the monk would name the species of chicken. And he did this about a dozen times,
Mm-hmm.
all different species of chickens. And finally Shane is like, what's the point of naming all these chickens? And the guy goes, how many types of chickens do you need?
Right.
One. Right? They're good to eat.
The delicious kind.
They lay
Right.
eggs. Like, cool. And he said, it's clear from the number of species of chickens there are that the universe determines diversity is a good thing. Like, how cool is that? And that fits into languages. When I started in this industry, I thought, one day we're all going to be out of work because we're going to be speaking
Oh shit,
Esperanto
Camicia's watching. Hi,
or
Camicia.
English. We just gave you a shout out, Camicia.
We did. Hi, Camicia. Atlanta. We did.
Hotlanta.
Hotlanta. All right, where's my chat? There we go.
Hotlanta Local Lunch.
Atlanta. We did have lots of newcomers, and I second guess your synopsis. I was struck by the generosity as well. Oh, thanks for watching, Camicia. Good to see you.
Wow, this is like live performance.
That's why we call it live.
So cool.
Yeah, go on.
So clearly,
Sorry.
in the however long I've been in the industry, I'm now convinced, like, screw universal language. No offense to people who are working towards that.
Esperanto.
No Esperanto.
Are there still people talking about that? Like, is that still a thing? I don't think that's a serious thing anymore.
Companies still localizing it.
Seriously?
They do.
In my career, I've never localized into Esperanto. But I mean, who am I?
I think
right?
you have Microsoft. I think Microsoft does Esperanto.
Not me. I never worked.
Not you personally?
No, not me personally. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying Moravia or We Localize or anybody.
Yeah. But it's fascinating that, like, this idea of I come from a theological background, so please, if you're
Me
like
too.
atheist,
I just took the Bible college off my LinkedIn the other day because it wasn't relevant.
And just like recontextualize what I'm saying, because it's not like it's just a framework for speaking about things, but like people talk about like the Tower of Babel, and I thought the reversal of this thing of like all the languages being introduced to the world was going back to one language. And now I'm like, no, actually that whole thing was a gift, and the sort of universal extension of it is the glorious things that come out of the diversity. And what's the thing, like some Hawaiian languages,
so you're
like
saying the splitting of
the
the tongues was a gift?
Yeah, it was a blessing actually,
Interesting.
because the Hawaiians have 100 words for wave, and Eskimos have 100 words for snow,
Americans have
and
100 words for light beer.
for like it's just each culture. It's a part of like culture and humanity and creativity. Um, and again, we're getting into like Chomsky territory, right? Of like how
Yeah,
much of it is universal and how much of it is
yeah,
learned. I
yeah,
don't know,
yeah.
but yeah. Anyway, this so it's a generous industry in its best moments. It's a diverse in this industry. Um, we all will work together at some point.
Right.
uh, you people change companies get bought and sold, and the people who have made it in this industry for, I would say, more than 5 years are known by others,
Hmm.
and that is both good and bad.
It's good and bad. It's good and bad because you get a reputation in this industry and it can be hard to shake. But that's true of any industry.
Yep. And I stepped out. I got more into offshore software development
Hmm?
and testing for about a year and a half.
That's right.
And
You left the industry for
I
a little
did,
while.
just for like a breath. And
Yeah.
I remember sitting in a meeting during that time, and I had sold a app for a electric car. It was an iPhone app for Ford, and we were going over it with Ford because they said this is not what I ordered. And I'm not technical.
Hmm.
And so I pulled out the requirements sheet and I said, is it built on the iPhone? Yes. Does it do that? And I read through, and all the people said yes, yes, yes. And the CEO of the company I was with was sitting there. And I said, so how can you tell me this is not what you ordered if it meets every spec?
Hmm.
And they're like, it just doesn't. And so I said, is this a negotiation tactic because you don't want to pay?
Fair question.
And the CEO looked like he was going to drop dead. And I said that because I was like,
I've seen that look on bosses' faces before.
right. I was like, this is wrong. And while I said that, I thought to myself, no one ever said we didn't deliver French.
Yeah.
They said your French sucks, right? Like we got to argue about quality,
Hmm.
but like we have a product that is so tangible when it comes down to words that we're not talking about whether it exists or not. We're talking about the quality of it, the timing of it, the price of it.
Right.
It's not ethereal. And so that's something. And then I was excited to get back into the industry once I had that experience. And then when I came back, I still had friends,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was,
And you slipped right back into the industry. Like, I remember that. It's to the point where it's like, I'd forgotten you had even gone outside the industry on this.
yeah, and it felt very lonely outside and this isn't like a stay in localization because we need
Yeah,
everyone
no.
talk,
Escape
but
if you can.
no, yeah, like go
Take me with
create
you.
something. I'm blinking twice.
Yeah.
Like, oh. but, but it was a very lonely time when I was doing this other thing. And then I assumed I would come back and people would be like, you abandoned me, you traitor. And it was quite the opposite. They were like, hey, when are you coming to San Francisco? When are you
Yeah.
coming to New York? Like,
Nothing's changed.
what can I do? How can I help you in this new thing you're doing? And so I don't want, I mean, I do want actually, like if people flooded my LinkedIn with like, hey, Michael, could you help with this? Like, I would love to have the problem of like triaging a full LinkedIn inbox of people needing direction, help, those sorts of things. I mean, there is an answer of no, because
Well,
there's some things I'm not good at.
you, sir, are the VP of Enterprise something. What does it say there? VP of Enterprise, right? Your sales,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you, throughout your career, have always had creative titles to hide the fact, you hide the word sales. But I use the word sales unashamedly. And I say, I, Tucker Johnson, do sales. I am not a salesperson because I'm not, but I do sales because sales is not what people think it is. But sales, people have this perception that sales is, like the used car salesman out there saying anything that they need to close a deal, stab you in the back. There's just this negative, unwarranted perception of sales out there. So people don't like to talk about like, yes, I am in sales. But when it comes right down to it, sales is about adding value.
It is.
Right. And you know who really said that the first time to me that it hunk home is our friend Laura
Yeah,
Daly.
yeah,
And I was explaining to her, and she was basically like, "Look, Tucker, I don't sell. Like, I don't. That's not what I do. Is I help people find problems, or help people diagnose problems and find solutions for their problems." And I think I had heard that before, but coming from her was the first time it seemed like genuine, or it clicked for me.
no, Laura is a master of what you just described. And if you look at the relationships she's had throughout her career, they're long term, they're loyal,
Yeah,
they're people who, when they're in
yeah.
town,
I'm like teaching a workshop for her like a
they'll,
couple weeks, and I'm
yeah,
like, no, I'm not going to charge you for that shit, right?
yeah. I
Because
mean,
that's the type of relationships that she's built.
it's just, and Laura is a great example of it. I mean, Tucker, the one thing I would challenge that you said though is
Oh,
there was a time in my career where I shied away from sales. And if you guys can hear the lawnmower, that's awesome. Um, this shied away from sales, and then I realized, oh my goodness, I've been born to do this. My grandfather was a cattle trader, which in English is
fine line,
literally
fine
the
line between
term.
rust
The term.
trader and
The,
rustler.
yeah, well, you use the term. Are you cattle trading with me right now?
Yeah.
When you're like negotiating and selling, and so that I realized this is in my genes, and so I fully embraced it. But what's happening now
Well,
for
you did
me?
study theology.
I did right.
I'm just saying,
Smith
you've
Yule
been
was the first
you've been
person.
selling products your entire life.
Smith Yule said to me when I started at Relocalize, because they acquired the company
Uh-huh.
I worked for, and
Cytometrics, yeah.
he said, if you can sell God, man, you can sell anything.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
I
saying.
wasn't. I don't. To my better, I was probably a terrible God salesman. Probably still am. Which, thank God I ended up in localization
Be
because it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so
I'm a very poor light on a hill. Let's put it
yeah.
that way.
But what my career is transformed into now is when I can help and when I can sell and diagnose and create solutions, I do. The bigger game for me now is how do I create opportunity for others to do that?
Well, you're more about connecting people now,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And I think the higher you get, because you can't be an expert in everything. So, like when I talk to someone like you or my partner Renato or someone like that now, it's like the value that you guys bring a lot of times, not that you don't know stuff, but is like, I know the person you need to talk to.
Yeah. And it translated, we say it like this. Because we're doing a lot of hiring. There's a plug. And especially in the enterprise growth area, which is business development and account management. And what we look for is every company talks about their pillars, and they usually talk
Mm.
about a stool, right? You sit at the stool, and the top of the stool is being a servant, right? If you want to be at the table at Translated, you need to be a servant of other people. And I describe that as if you see someone's thirsty, you get them a cold glass of water. It's that
Mm.
simple. And then, but our pillars, the legs of the stool, are three things for enterprise sales. It's curiosity,
Mm.
empathy, and then the third one, I actually changed. It's movement. You
Mm.
need to have a propensity to move. And when we first named this, we said action, because we want closers. And as that sort of percolated in me, I thought, sometimes it's wrong to close business.
Mm.
Sometimes it's the
Yeah.
wrong timing. Sometimes it's bad business. Sometimes it's insincere. And so I would rather have people who move in the direction towards people, move away from people, or move others to other people that can help them. And
That.
so those
wh-
are our three
What
principles.
was it before? And I'm going to get to the comments here in a sec. But what was the pillar before? You said you changed it.
It was action.
Action.
We wanted people to have a propensity to action. And I think movement captures action,
I
but
think
it
it does
also
too.
captures more.
I think it
Yeah.
does too. Yeah. Let's get to the chats here. Who's talking to us? Alyssa, our friend Alyssa Jorgen. We were just talking about you last night. Alyssa says, I fully embrace the dirty salesperson identity. And
You see Dirty South,
eh,
Miami.
yeah,
Miami in the
yeah, that
house.
sounds like Alyssa to me. And she is a damn good dirty salesperson too. So I don't care. I don't care what you do. As long, I mean, hey, if you're my salesperson, close business, right? I don't care if you're moving or if you're actioning. Close business,
Just do it.
right?
Hey, now I want to take issue with this cattle trading. So my grandfather ran cattle from, I think, Indiana to Virginia.
Mhm.
So it is not a West Coast expression. It may not be a Southern expression. It may be a Northeast expression as well. But yeah, cattle traders. It's a
Horse
thing.
trading. Horse
Horse
trading.
trading. Okay.
You probably
Yeah,
heard
yeah,
that one, Camicia. Horse trading. It's
yeah,
synonymous.
yeah.
Another U.S. West Coast. I always like to drop this little info bit is branding. When we talk about branding and marketing, that came from cattle training.
It did.
It came from cattle training because you used to brand.
So I got to tell the story because it is related to
Oh God, here we go.
cooperation and competition. It's a story of my grandfather, and my grandfather went off to war in the Depression era. He was a pilot for the B-26 bombers, the Flying Fortresses.
Yep.
He was 2 inches too short
Or
to
B-20.
be considered, which meant he had in those planes you had to reach under the where the steering column was, and so he had to stretch further than most people. He was too little to do it, and he still did it. Half the people who flew in these planes died.
Yeah, they were basically death traps.
They were, and he lived. And when he came home from war, he wanted to be a veterinarian, but my grandmother had gotten pregnant. They ended up having 9 kids. So his story to become a veterinarian was not going to happen, and he had to make money, and so he went into cattle trading. He did well, and being in that sort of Depression era, there was always meat on the table, which is good if you have 9 kids.
Yeah.
Now,
well, it's easy to have meat on the table when you have 9 kids. You just end up with 8 or 7 of them after a while.
That's nasty.
Right.
And so, but the story I want to get to is my grandfather's career really took off when he had a small, what do they call them, herd of cattle that got stolen by the largest farm in America. And I don't remember the names, but it was a insignificant number to this farm, and it was my grandfather's livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a choice of basically sue this company that has infinite lawyers and would put him through the mud and basically destroy him both emotionally and financially in the lawsuit, or just sort of take it on the chin from them. And my grandfather chose to take it on the chin, which is very antithetical, right?
Yeah.
For Americans, at least.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was...
We have a rebellious streak, especially when...
Yeah, we want to fight.
We want to fight the man, right?
We want to fight the man.
Yeah.
And my grandfather chose not to. And what ended up happening is all of his peers, who also were small traders, decided to start sending all that they could to him. And the community came around him to support, and he ended up being wildly successful. And to the point where when I was a kid, he had to be in his late 70s. He would have a herd come up, once a year. It was kind of symbolic. And then my dad and I went to auction with him. And it's exactly, if you guys have ever been to a rodeo or something like that, it's an outside stadium, kind of small, with cowboy hats.
$1. Can you do the auction right in your voice? I can't do the auction in your voice.
The guy's going, hey, right? And we're walking in while this is going on. And the guy mid-call stops and says, ladies and gentlemen, Billy Stevens.
He stopped his call
into the building.
Wow.
We would like you to stand. And it wasn't a lot of people. I'm not saying it was like 200 people, but it was 50.
Numbers don't matter.
They stood up and they took their hats off, and they had a moment for my grandfather.
That's cool.
This was my coming to grips with sales is a noble profession. Yeah. Right? Like I had the dirty, I could be operations, I could be marketing, I could be these things. But like my grandfather, I think I was 14 or so when that happened. That should have clicked something in my brain of whoa, this is a noble profession. And it wasn't until I was almost 40 at least that I went, no, wait, not only was I born to do this, there's a way to do it with integrity and wholeheartedness that people can recognize. And I hope our industry gets beyond this. Let me fill up people's inboxes with I can give you 10% off, or what you're paying currently, or, all of these templates that are out there that are just wasting people's time and filling up spam filter, or getting caught in spam filters. Like, we're better than that. We have more interesting things to do than that. And we have an industry that has things that are better than that to offer. So
what is this idea that you have? We were talking about last night, the vendor side in our industry. We are all the same vendor. Or how did you put it? Like, we just haven't admitted it. Well, let's get to comments first, though. I just want to make sure that we're up to date here. Camicia, this must be West Coast link. Oh, we got that. Merrick, hey Merrick. Love the pillar movement, moving towards people, away from people.
He's now going to steal that and do his 5 videos and write a research paper on that.
That's what we do here at Nimdzi.
I'm not going to say anything anymore. I'm going to sit here silent.
That's why I have this, right? not because it is an awesome piece of information with a lot of data-backed writing and articles about language and research report published by Translated. That's not why I'm showing it. That's not why I have it. I have it because I'm going to copy everything and publish it under Nimdzi.
You should be. We should be spurring people on.
Was that subtle enough? Was that plug subtle enough that I snuck in there?
Tim Ferriss.
No, but seriously, guys, check this out. Plug this, Michael, because
I will. But I'm going to tell the story first before I plug it.
Okay.
Tim Ferriss, when he put out his first book, The 4-Hour Workweek, he lost his mind because someone turned it into a PDF and it was giving away for free on the internet. And he was like, oh my goodness, these aren't books. I could be getting book revenue for this. And some friend of his or advisor or whoever it was said, the people who are taking that PDF would never buy your book.
Yep.
But your ideas are getting out there. And people do a few things with ideas. They take them and they ignore them. They take them and they try to implement and they fail. They take them and they're able to implement them and make themselves better. Or the best option is they take your ideas and they build something better upon them. And then they come back to you and they say, man, look what I built with what you taught me. And then guess what? You're better for it because someone's taken your idea and stolen it. I mean, this is where people complain, and I still hear it, and it drives me nuts about, IP issues in China. It is a cultural thing where a culture believes ideas do not belong. It's the same as the Native American Indians who didn't believe land belongs to someone. In China, how can an idea belong to someone? I can take your idea and I can build it. And
Chinese people in the comments section, fact check us.
Fact check me because I'm wrong. But this is where I push back on Western countries who are like, I don't want to take my product to China. It's going to be duplicated and I'm never going to get money for it. And I'm like, then make your product better.
Offer something different. Offer something different. Offer more value.
Is Microsoft still relevant in China? Yeah. Is Google, even though there's Baidu? Yeah. Is Amazon? Well, I don't know. That's a tough one. Alibaba's kind of crushing them.
Yeah.
But I mean, so it's competition, and it gets us into the same conversation that collaboration can still lead to competition. But you said it earlier, it's not a zero-sum game.
Right.
It's an infinite game. I can go out today. Oh, it's going to get loud. I can go out today and lose a deal be back in a deal against the same people next week and win.
And that's happened before. I've seen you do that.
And Seth Godin,
right?
Seth Godin describes the infinite game as a parent with the child throwing a ball back and forth. And that's what we're doing. And when we look at our work as an infinite game, you're not trying to beat the child at throwing the ball back and forth. If you are, you shouldn't be playing catch with them. It's the joy of the activity. And if we can start finding the joy in our work and trying to do things better and trying to spur each other on to be better, our industry will be better, the companies we serve will be better, and the world will be better. So, and it comes back to this other thing that is the underlying principle of us being one company. Translators, you work for all of us. Like, the dirty secret is it's a finite number of translators, and they're all plugged into all the companies in our industry.
Yeah.
Some companies work with translators better than others. That's a fact.
It's the
So
vendor
those
management function, right? Don't disrespect the vendor management
and
because it's a big part of the value added by an
the
LSP.
tools they use and the
Mm-hmm.
financial element of who pays on time and who pays 45 days or
Oh,
90 days.
I've
I
seen
mean,
that destroy multi-million dollar accounts, just not being
yeah,
able to manage the ones and zeros and
yes,
track everything.
yes.
So,
And so that's where I say, and it's a conceptual thing because clearly everyone has different business licenses and we pay different taxes. And so we are separate companies. But if you think about the concept of we're all actually doing the same thing, and some of us are just better at certain parts of it than others.
so if we're all doing the same thing, that would be so. What you're proposing is that we expand our tribe, right? Like we're a tribal species, and right now, if my tribe is my company, you're suggesting like no, actually, your tribe is like the industry or perhaps the vendor side, right? If we want to expand our tribe a little bit further, we expand it to the entire industry, the localization industry. But we can't stop there. And I know
Right.
you agree with me on this. We can't keep talking to ourselves in this industry and only ourselves. And if we're not careful, that's what it's turning into. It's
I
just
was in a meeting yesterday and I said, the problem with us in this room, as smart as we think we are, we all know the same people.
yeah.
And it severely limits our ability.
And hey,
That's a
I'm part
very
of the problem. I'm sitting here talking to someone on my podcast who I've known for 15 years
we
instead of reaching out to
we're like, guys, do not be like us. We're
no,
case
no.
study in what not to do.
Exactly.
So one thing that there are two things I wanted to bring up, and I forgot the first, so I'll just go on the second. Tribalism.
Mm.
There's a book, there's a TED talk that the guy wrote a book on where it talks about 4 levels of tribalism. The first one is I suck. The second one is you suck. The third one is we're awesome, you suck. And then the fourth level, I believe, is let's work for the good. And this is a terrible summary of a really remarkable book in TED Talk.
I suck.
I suck. Like that's a suicidal tribe,
Yeah.
right? Like it's a tribe of one and it's sad.
Okay.
The other one is you suck.
You suck.
So it's the angsty teenager who
Okay. Me against the world.
wears black and me against the world.
Okay.
The third one is I found a tribe and we're awesome.
Yeah.
This is what most companies do. We're
Yeah.
awesome, but the rest of y'all suck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the fourth level is let's search out a universal good.
Yeah.
So it's sort of the destruction of tribalism, right?
And that's coming from a place of power too. When you start having conversations like that, I find when you aren't worried about the competition and what the quote unquote competition is doing, and you're more focused on like how do I find new ways to add value, then it's everybody wins, right? Even your competition wins because they lose and they get better or they go out of business.
And the competition is a point in time.
Right.
Like I said,
yeah.
It's a point in time. And they're either evolving or deteriorating. I'm either evolving or deteriorating. And even if I may have a technological advantage today, I may have a 1-month window on it or a 2-year window. Regardless, it's a point in time. And we can look at and be brutally honest about where we are at our point in time, and then sort of start thinking, what can I do to get a little bit better tomorrow?
What can we do as an industry? Well, I don't want to talk about what we can do as an industry because the industry isn't a person. Well, let's see. Before we jump in there, let's get back to the chats here. Nimdzi Insights. My guess, the movement pillar totally came from Michael's wife. Oh my gosh, that is Nimdzi. That's my company commenting that.
It did. Actually, because my wife is a movement artist, and I started thinking, this is Alyssa. By the way, Alyssa took over your admin account.
God, is that Alyssa commenting under the company page? Yes, you haven't worked for me for 2 months. I am cutting you off right now, Alyssa.
So I'll just monologue.
God, she knows how to cause shit, doesn't she?
Your admin.
Yeah, just monologue while I cut Alyssa off here.
I wish. It was funny. I had 2 points on the tribal thing, and then I lost the second. I lost the first point first, and then got to the second. What were we? What did you say after tribals about what we can do?
What we can do as an industry, but I'm less interested in talking about what we can do as an industry and what can I do as an individual. What can Kamicia, Alicia, Marek
this is
do?
my story. I would tell. So
nice.
multilingual allowed us to do a webinar, a panel discussion, and we did it on artificial intelligence. And Translated's founders started a school of AI. It's called the Pi School. So I had the head of the school slated to speak. I had another friend who runs a conversational AI company, and we had him on the podcast. And so he was my second person to come. And then there was sort of a list of other people I knew who I was hoping to gather and draw in on this conversation. And I realized it was going to be all dudes. Now, thankfully, we had people of color represented. So at least it wasn't all white middle-aged dudes, but it was all dudes. And I did a really stupid thing. I made a public commitment to our friends at Multilingual and to the people in Translated that I am going to make this not be a panel of all dudes. And which then, you make commitments like that, you're on the hook.
Yeah.
Like you're responsible. And I had no reasonable means of solving this. And I know how to do sales. And so I just went to LinkedIn and I started writing people. I looked at my network because I do live with a principle that I'm at the point in my life where if I have a problem and I don't know how to solve it, someone in my network does.
Yeah.
And so the power of the network, and I just started going.
It takes the maturity, though, just really quickly, because I think some people in the audience, or not in the audience, might need to hear this, is that takes the maturity to be able to ask for help without prostrating yourself before people. Asking for help does not need to be like, I'm worse than you, help me, Rabbi. Like, it's people want to help. People like to help. Particularly people like to help people in their tribe.
Well, also, getting to speak on a panel put on by Multilingual is a privilege.
Oh, there's your plug for me. Thank you. Call for papers open now, people. A season series coming up.
You had really good panelists.
You did.
My friend at the conversational AI company, they just got funded by Amazon. Like, nice. If we had a panel of all dudes, it would have been a killer panel. It just would have been completely biased.
Wait, say that again. I need that soundbite to blackmail you with.
Yeah, exactly. But I said it would have been biased and short-sighted. And so to make this, so go listen to the talk, because I was just the host. It ended up being really well. And I will say I was able to help fulfill that commitment. And then afterwards, what I did was I wrote the person who joined us and said, hey, I have a gap in my life, and it is I don't know enough women who do work in AI. You happen to go to operate in different networks and circles than I do. If at any point it would be of benefit for you to introduce me to people there or have me involved, I'm willing. But you're under no obligation, or don't help the white guy was sort of what I was trying to say. Yeah. But also, the world would be better if we can use the access and networks we have with each other. And so I think that's a very tangible thing people can do. Is if you just started in this industry, you still went to a college probably.
Or dropped out, like me.
Or dropped out, but you probably knew a couple people.
I went.
And you know a couple people from your college.
My dealer was in the dorm, so I had to go sometimes.
So when Tucker started in localization, he could get people good weed. And that was his value that he brought to the industry.
It's all about adding value.
But there is, don't underestimate, like you were saying, the value and feel like, oh, I'm just so needy. Oh, help me.
Yeah.
Have dignity first.
Well, first of all, it's not a good look, right? Like, first of all, like, let's just you don't gain respect that way, right? Not caveat, not in the culture I come from, right? In some cultures that might be the thing to do, right? But yeah, I'm
trying to think of it. I don't know if sort of groveling and destitute is looked upon favorably in any culture.
Well, the cultural difference would be they wouldn't even think of it as destitute and groveling. Okay. They think of it as good manners.
Good manners. Well, but then being reserved or being quietly confident or there are other ways that you can position yourself. Because I had to have preaching training, I remember one of the principles was be willing to share and be vulnerable, but always do it in strength. And you can say things like, hey man, I have this major problem in my life, I'm sure you do too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's simple as that. Like, I'm sure you have trouble reaching the people who you want to talk to the same way I do. So why don't we work on this together and see if we can't use what little we have to take our network a little bit further and benefit the industry for that.
It's a powerful message, right? And I think we're just very fortunate to be in this industry and have that coopetition here. Let's look at some comments and then give closing arguments here. So, Simeo Tito, linguist, hello from Angola, traveling with you. Oh my gosh, we are an international podcast now.
Dude.
Good to see you.
Angola, thank
you, Simeo. I don't think you've been in the comments before, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Kamesia, type for posterity. This resonated. Be brutally honest about where... Now I'm like, oh my gosh, is this going to be something Michael said, or is this going to be one of my quotes? Be brutally honest about where we are at our point in time and what we can do to get better. I think that's a Michael quote. You got the Kamesia stamp of approval.
Oh.
And Alyssa says, Michael, let me introduce you to our head engineer, Mercedes Garcia. Do you know Mercedes?
I don't.
No. Alyssa's trying to sell in the comments section. I can block her.
Is that allowed? This is not the Unconference, which I am a big fan of. You're not allowed to sell at the Unconference, but clearly, Alyssa, you're allowed to sell here because Tucker.
Well, she's one of those.
You lost your admin rights.
Yeah, they were revoked. I yanked those right now. That's why she's commenting from her own profile and not the Nimdzi profile anymore.
It was I got to tell a story why you did it.
But Alyssa is a great example of like have balls. Go out there, do stuff, beg forgiveness, don't ask permission, and hack the company account for the company you used to work for.
Well, we refer to this translated as our pirate side. You have Reid Hoffman says you have companies that are the Navy and you have companies that are pirates, and both of them have their value, but know which one you are. Don't be a pirate that joins the Navy because you'll have a really hard time. Don't be a Navy guy and join a pirate ship because you'll be unhappy.
That is brilliant.
It's simple Reid Hoffman, you guys, founder of LinkedIn, Grey Rock investor, like he's the oracle of Silicon Valley, great thinker. And we have a very pirate side to our we own a boat. We're sailors.
Yeah, you legitimately translated legitimately has a boat.
Yes, and we created our own version of a pirate flag for that boat. That's an internal branding thing. It's awesome. I don't think you can find it online. Well, if you look at the video of the boat, it does exist on the video. But don't give up your pirate side if that's who you are. There's a place for that in the industry. If you're a process-oriented, by the rules, let's set it up, there are companies in our industry that you will benefit. Oh, this is just a beautiful, beautiful video. We are doing a race around the world.
For those listening as a podcast, we're showing a video of the Translated 9, which is translated sail racing boat.
Racing boat, and we have bought the yacht. We're doing training in Rome and San Francisco. And in 2023, we're going to take a crew of people from the localization industry to race around the world.
Wait, say that again. Say that again. We need to...
We are taking a crew of non-professional sailors and doing the hardest sailboat race in the world with people from the localization industry.
Eric Wolfel, Yerji Perchel, if you're listening, if anyone out here knows them, I need to call them, because I know some guys, some old Moravia guys, they would literally not charter, but they take a pirate tour every year.
This is a once in a lifetime opportunity for two reasons. The first is if you're anywhere in the proximity of San Francisco, Paul Caillard is probably the most globally well-known sailing coach and captain, is our coach for our trainings out of San Francisco. So we have the world, the leading world. He's a Michael Jordan in Italy, right? Because of the competitions he's done there. So Paul Kayard is doing our coaching. So that's a once in a lifetime chance, is to go to San Francisco and sail for a day or two with Paul Kayard. The other once in a lifetime thing is more people summit Everest in a year than have ever completed the Ocean Globe race. And it's been going since 1973.
Wow.
So it crosses all three horns of the continents, and it is incredibly dangerous.
And you pull into port, right? Like
You do. Each leg, there are 4 legs, and each leg is 45 days.
4 legs. Each leg is a month and a half.
Yes.
So you're at sea for a month and a half?
Yes.
On this?
With no technology.
On this?
On this.
With how many other people?
No GPS, no motor. None of those are allowed in the race on our boat. You have to be on a boat that is raced in the first 3 of these races. The first one was in 1973, and only with the technology that existed during that time. So you will be navigating by charts and stars, and for 45 days straight.
Are you doing it?
No cell phones. No cell phones. I am registered, and if I'm selected, yes.
That's pretty awesome.
I'm not a professional sailor. It's a Swan 65, which many have said is the most beautiful boat ever made. It is also.
I'm sorry. Who the heck is your cinematographer? That's one thing that I just can't hold it in any longer. Like you guys put out some good stuff.
These are all employees.
Wow.
Too, on this.
Kudos
on this video.
to whoever you are, sir or lady.
This kind of came up earlier, and I probably shouldn't say it, but we have a pirate expression that definitely wouldn't be used generally in American companies. We say it translated, we don't hire ugly people. And if you watch our videos, and you see the joke of that is if you work there and you say that, you're actually saying I'm super good looking.
Yeah.
It's a really vain, narcissistic thing. But when you say it, not everyone gets it. They're like, you're making jokes about ugly people. And it's like, no, actually what I'm saying is I'm super conceited. And
yeah.
So we don't hire ugly people. Watch our videos, and you too could be as beautiful as the people in that video.
Yeah, you too can be as beautiful as Michael.
We're hiring. Did I mention that?
You're hiring. You're hiring.
We need to grow. We need to grow.
I think I actually even have a freaking no. There's a hiring. There's a hiring. We're hiring.
We're hiring. Yes, Nimdzi's hiring. Translated's hiring. There's a lot of growth happening right now in our industry.
There is.
But I'm excited. This is breaking news. If people didn't see it yesterday,
yes,
there was an announcement of funding for Translated. Ardian, one of the largest private investment firms in Europe, I think they have $112 billion under their portfolio and assets, almost all owned by their ownership, which is outrageous. They, and I want to get the number correct before I say it, because it's in the press release, $25 million investment in Translated. And we're thrilled about how this opens up. Our goal is that every person on Earth is understood and has understanding. And we see the support of Ardian as, first of all, confirmation from the market that other people believe that this is a valuable
validation. It's validation.
It's validation, but it also unlocks the resources for us to start accelerating our ability to do this. So when I say we're growing, my hope is it's at a blinding pace.
Yeah, you guys
so excited.
You guys will be growing. What we do here at Nimdzi is we're observers. We watch the LSPs and stuff, and you guys got some cool stuff up your sleeve. Stuff that other people aren't really catching up with yet, because you guys were Translated was like a sleeper agent for a long time. You guys didn't know the gold mine that you're sitting on, so now that you're finally out there telling people about it, people want more.
Well, maybe they didn't know, but they also, timing is everything, and
True.
For our industry to be successful, there's certain computing power that's needed to get done the stuff we do. The reason that neural machine translation is so successful now is because the machines are so much smarter.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And so we look at this as sort of timing as we're closing in on some of these technology gaps. We have some really interesting things around the energy use of our company, being a green company, but going well beyond being green, and that we're pursuing. And these are like long-term strategies so that energy costs go up around the world, which they will. Mm-hmm. That impacts companies' ability to have things available. People will be priced out of the market because of high energy costs at some point. And so these are the sort of things we're thinking about at Translated and how to move within the market. And we also just, from my perspective, I need people who know enterprise sales and enterprise account management.
So quick question, Michael Stevens, is Translated hiring?
How many times do you have to say something for it to stick with people? 6?
I think it's 6. 4. I think we're at 4 or 5. So Translate. I just said it again. Yes. I just said it again.
Translated is hiring.
There we go. We're at 6.
We're there. We got it. If people haven't gotten it by now, I don't think I want them to work for us.
Yeah, we're at 6, guys, and we're at we've been doing this over an hour. I normally try to keep these around 45 minutes, but I could easily go longer with you. Come on again, and we can shoot the shit about a number of tangents we avoided today.
Yeah, man. The next thing we do, the next thing that happens with either of our companies, let's just sit around and talk.
Comments, though. I want to give shout outs. Alyssa. No, we're not reading Alyssa anymore. Camicia, Michael plus Translated's panel. Oh, thank you, Camicia. Oh, Camicia put a link in the comments to Michael's Translated panel or Michael's panel.
The multilingual summer series. That
I was looking for it, but it's hard because I'm doing other stuff. And Catherine Santora, welcome. Hello, Nimdzi friend. I think this is your first time in the comments too, Catherine. Welcome. Hey, Catherine. It's good to have you. So with that, Michael, we are going to play some music. We'll play us out here. Any closing thoughts, closing arguments?
No, I just thank you for anyone who listens to this. And, just really grateful. And thank you, Tucker. I don't say that to you enough. You're doing great work.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Unfortunately, my music's not working, so you guys don't get a nice little ditty
Can I beatbox and you sing?
You can beatbox. Oh my goodness, my whole thing just busted here. All right, Nimdzi Insights is a market research and consulting company specialized in the language services industry. And with that, my buttons are all broken, so we're going to end this very abruptly. Have a great day, guys.